Okay, here we got the first setup for the playset, the main one actually. This is the surface, of course, at the cemetery, and this is after the special forces and the monster hunters uh, try to come in and rescue the kidnapped victims that will be sacrificed. And the guys in the foreground there, that's a squad of the Army Rangers. There are 3 squads in all. In the tunnels, there will be 2 squads going in with the Paladin Force to try to effect the rescue because through reconnaissance, they figured that the victims, uh, not really hostages, just victims, had to be were down in the tunnels and needed to be rescued from there. And of course, there's zombies galore and a few members of the Fist of Satan, which are those undead knights, and some of the giant rats and wolves that have been called up by the vampire. Zombies galore, uh, called up by either or the vampire or the creature of doom. And 4 members of the Unholy Eight that are up here are the creature of doom standing atop the rock formation back there, overseeing everything. Of course, that thing, according to my background, it's so powerful that it could pretty much wipe out all the good guys by itself. But I don't know. The monster hunters might have a few surprises for it. And there's the vampire back there, kind of guarding the cave entrance that goes down into the tunnels. And there's uh, in that pond with for the rock formation on the right there, it's a green slime demon in there that can disguise itself as water. And there's some bloody fingerprints where he grabbed somebody and dragged them under, and they left some bloody handprints there. And the tree next to it, that demonic looking tree with the big snake around it, that is a cursed tree that the witch cursed and bound a demon into it. So it's actually a combatant too if you get close enough. And that's probably the tree that she was hanged on back in 1692. And of course, you got this little structure, this ruined house on the right here. It's just a ruined haunted house now, but at one time it was a church, and then it fell into ruin, and then it became a structure that the caretaker for the cemetery stayed in for a while, and then that really fell into ruin, and you see what it is now. I mean, it's just a husk of a building, really. And you notice that the cemetery gate there says haunted on it, and that is actually spray painted on there by some drunk teenagers. For years, this cemetery hill spot was abandoned, and there were legends of it being haunted. And drunk teenagers came out here and partied and did all manner of things and put graffiti up. But that used to say uh, Hilltop uh, Cemetery. And so anyway, that's pretty much it for up on the surface. I'm going to take the camera loose and move it around a little bit. Or actually, I'm sorry, it said Hillcrest. That was the proper name for the cemetery, Hillcrest. It's been abandoned for years, but it's still known as Hillcrest around here. When the witch was hanged in 1692, this area was called Demon's Overlook after that, because it's been haunted for hundreds of years, but not as substantially as it is currently, since the witch formed the Unholy Eight and came back as a revenant and raised all of her monsters and started plotting her revenge on the people that killed her and just humanity in general. But anyway, I'm going to pause this video and take the camera loose and move it around a little bit so you guys can see some of this stuff a little better. Okay, this is going to be a little jerky, but anyway, you guys will get an aerial view of this thing. It's just set up on a table here in my unused kitchen that I use for videos and to make pictures and stuff. There's the inside of the ruined building. And there's the woods back there. It isn't too far back there. It goes to the cliff that goes all the way down to the ocean, to the Seaside grotto that the tunnels lead out to, that you can access 2 or 3 different ways. One way is through that cave right there. Of course, you got the giant bats in there that hang about the vampire, giant spiders everywhere. There's that slime demon, and that used to be a pond. And there's the cursed tree. So there we go. That's pretty much the main setup for the surface conflict. Of course, you've got the situation where originally this one squad of Army Rangers were going to come in as a diversion and hopefully draw a lot of these things up here and then just slowly withdraw. But they're soon going to find out that they're going to be overwhelmed. And I don't know if any of them will get out alive or not. I guess that's up to the kid playing with this thing. But anyway, in the history of it, after the 3 were kidnapped, then these monsters started rising up here, and of course, you know, the cops showed up, and a few showed up to check it out, and they were killed, and then a few showed up in force along with the SWAT team, and they were killed. Then they called in the National Guard, and they were slaughtered. So the authorities couldn't very well, couldn't bomb the place because of the victims, and you know, that was a bit of an overreaction. Still, it's hard for people to swallow the fact that there are monsters running around. So they called in 3 squads of Army Rangers, and they hired those mercenaries, the Paladin Force, to come in and see if they could at least get you know, the victims out of there alive before they pulled out even heavier artillery on this mess. And they'd probably get a real surprise if they did start using artillery and jets and things like that, because that creature of doom, according to my background, could pretty much wipe out anything that is fairly normal, regardless of how much damage it could do. You need some kind of magic to combat that thing. Either rituals or high-tech weaponry using certain enchanted or objects that are holy or whatever. The Paladin Force could fight that thing. These troops and, you know, tanks and things like that really wouldn't have a chance against it. But anyway, that's just my background. Like I said, the kid playing with it is the one that decides what goes on. I'm going to change the setup now to the tunnels. Okay, so now we resume with one of the tunnel setups. Now, these tunnels sections just represent the floor of the tunnels. And, you know, I mean, it's a place that has limitations. You just have to suspend disbelief about the walls and the surrounding earth and such as that. This is kind of like a fantasy role-playing game like D&D or whatever, but, you know, it's a role-play set, so. Anyway, the main chamber there is where the witch, you know, uses for her major spell casting, and she has grimoire there on the table called the Malefice Infinium. It's kind of like this playset's version of the Necronomicon or whatever. And there's a summoning circle in front of her there, and a bunch of the Fist of Satan knights that she summoned to repel these invaders. And the green Frankenstein monster type is simply called the monster. He's by her side there. He's like her personal guard or whatever in the Unholy Eight. Pretty much mindless except for what she tells him. And that victim back behind her, back there, she's supposed to be chained to the wall. And of course, here's another victim right here. The executioner has her at knife point. And here is a victim on the rack. And I could insert some jokes there, but I won't. And we've got various things, like here's a pool of water down here, you know, and I just cut these out of cardboard, and you can lay them out in any kind of configuration. A kid could have a ball with this, just making stuff up. And there is her bookcase back there with her grimoires and, you know, her reference books and all that. And there's some gold. You know, even the bad guys have to use money sometimes. And a cabinet with magical paraphernalia in it by that. And there's an alchemy table. And anyway, these are the heroes. This is the Paladin Force. This is a squad of Army Rangers, and this is another squad. They all moved in through this tunnel. They found another way in besides that main cave up there that the vampire was guarding. And they're going to try to rescue these girls, and this is actually going to be a fight down here, according to my background on these guys. The Paladin Force is pretty potent, especially against various supernatural creatures. And those Army Rangers, you know, against things like regular undead, they're pretty tough. So this could be a fight. There's a trap door back there in the floor of that chamber that leads down to another chamber. And who knows what she has down there. And, you know, that's pretty much it for that. This tunnel here leads further on to eventually to the Seaside grotto through several other tunnels. And I'm going to pick all this up and set that up now. Okay, here is the last setup for it. Of course, there's enough tunnels and things you could do, you know, a couple more full setups. But anyway, this is the Seaside grotto with the haunted Hulk sitting there. And the mummy is the only member of the Unholy Eight not involved in the fighting, either up in the tunnels and chambers or up on the surface. So he's down here guarding the ship. And of course, they've also got a sea monster guard, which is an NPC. It's a Chronosaurus, but it's a plesiosaur. And there's a couple of skeleton warriors over there standing guard as just a general thing. Even though they have that mist that obscures the entrance to the grotto, still they post guards down here, and there are 3 of the coffins for the vampires. And of course, you know, it'd be a good place for giant rats and spiders and whatever, but I was just throwing this stuff out, try to get through this video. But there you go. That's pretty much it. The Haunted Graveyard Playset. And it's, like I said, it's a custom. It's supposed to have been made in 1969, according to the fictitious background of it. And it was actually made by NPC, and it would be a huge, sprawling playset by NPC standards. I mean, it'd be huge even by Mark's standards, but too bad we never really got anything like this. I just made it for myself, for my collection, because we never did get it. So, happy Halloween, and I hope you liked it. That is all for now.